Hello and how are you? A warm welcome to Family Wellness Counseling Center. It's always a joy to have you. My name is Nganga. Today, I want us to talk about parenting. Every one of us, either you are a parent right now or potentially you are going to become a parent. Now, what is parenting? Parenting refers to the multifaceted process of promoting and supporting a child physically, emotionally, socially, and with and intellectual development. That's what parenting, and it's multifaceted. And that happens from infancy to adulthood. It is important for us to also note that parenting, not only does it require providing the basic needs that a child has and requires, like food, shelter, clothing, and all that, but you must also, as a parent, meet and provide for the emotional and mental well-being of a child so that this child can ultimately grow and become a well-adjusted child. Now, parenting requires you to do all these things to support, to nurture, to support this child emotionally and mentally, requires you coming up with different strategies that are going to help you to meet these objectives. Now, every one of us has got a parenting style, and regardless of what we're doing, either passively or actively, we are parenting. And second to personal development, I think that the next great duty, responsibility you will ever take is to parent a child. I think that's one of the greatest duties that you'll ever do. You know, to be able to nurture a child and to be able to deal with the emotional needs and meet the emotional needs of this child. That is a really, really great duty and responsibility that you've got to deal with and you've got to meet. Now, parenting is not easy. And there are several things that inform into parenting. One of them is gender. Fathers and mothers parent differently. The other factor that influences parenting is our family of origin. How are we parented? How was parenting modeled to us? And we normally perpetuate whatever it is so that parenting style can become cross-generational, so that you find a semblance of the same in every generation. That's something that has been picked, either negative or positive, that has been picked from one generation and taken to the next generation and subsequently to another generation. Now, the other thing that informs on your parenting style is socioeconomic status. The socio environment that you grow in, the economic status that you grow in, informs you and influences on how you parent. So that even if you have got two similar parenting styles, but two different parents who are in two different social and economic statuses, or because of the economic status and the social status, there will be a different flavor with the two parents, regardless of a similarity in their parenting style. The other one is faith. You know, faith has got an impact. Religion has got an impact in how we parent, because our holy books have got something to say and have got an input in our parenting. And that is a factor that we cannot assume. The other factor that informs parenting is our cultural biases. You know, in some cultures, you'll find that more children in a family are valued and are considered a form of wealth or status. Now, the higher the number of children spread across maybe 2 decades, the more impact it's going to be on parenting. Some cultures leave disciplining and teaching values to mothers, and that in itself is going to inform the parenting style that you and I, end up coming up with. Now, that being the case, therefore, when we are defining a parenting style, there are 2 things that we will have to consider. One of them is support and the other one is control, because really a parent's input into a child is either control or is either support. Now, those 2, support and control, are called responsiveness for support. Responsiveness suggests a parent's ability to empathize with the emotional and mental needs of a child. Are you able to predict, or are you able to identify the needs that your child have? And are you able to be warm enough that this child can approach you? Are you responsive to your child? Are you warm? Are you available? Are you embraceable? Is your child okay talking with you? Can your child approach you at any time and have a discussion with you regardless of how sensitive the discussion is? Now, on the other hand, control is called demandingness. One of the things that a parent will have to do, and you and I have got to do, is to come up with boundaries within which our children must grow in. And those boundaries must be clearly defined, they must be well articulated and informed, and there must be measures to deal with violation of those boundaries. We have got to communicate expectations to our child. What do we expect concerning behavior and conduct, either alone or within the family, or within other social groups like school or a place of work, or even in church. And you communicate those expectations. There is an issue to do with rules in a house, that in this house we do not do this, we do not talk this way, we do not handle issues this way. That is something that we've got to communicate with a child. And how a parent is able to communicate those needs is what we call, and their expectation is what we call, demandingness. Now, there are majorly 4 parenting styles. And when we are defining parenting styles, we have got to look at demandingness, which is control, and we've got to look at responsiveness, which is the support that the parent is bringing on board in the life of the child. Now, the first parenting style that we find is an authoritative parent. Now, an authoritative parent is very high in demandingness, but also very high in responsiveness. They are able to articulate their expectations. Boundaries are clearly articulated and well defined. Expectation for behavior and conduct is clearly made known to the child. And whatever happens, the discipline or rewarding that happens when this child does not meet these requirements, these expectations within the family, then those rewards and punishment are also well known. But on the other hand, the parent is highly responsive. Very responsive. They are very warm to the child. So the child, even though the parent demands and expects them to conduct themselves in an expected way, the child also knows that I can approach my parent and apologize, or I can approach my parent so that we can have a dialogue on why I'm unable to meet your expectations and to do what it is that you're telling me. Authoritative parents are very, 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 very responsive, and they are also highly, highly, highly demanding. And they are able to bring up children who are well-rounded, well-grounded, so that they are able to, the children are able to be flexible, they're able to adapt to new situations and transitions. That happens very easily with children who've been brought up by an authoritative parent. This authoritative parent provides room enough for this child to discover themselves and pursue their interests and goals. So that even when the child has got to choose a career path, the parent facilitates, they support whatever it is that the child would be interested in doing. Now, the second type of parent that we find is an authoritarian parent. An authoritarian parent is very high on demanding. The demandingness is very high, almost equal to the authoritative parent. But on the other hand, an authoritarian parent is not very warm to the child. There is an emotional disconnect between the parent and the child, so that the child lives in a cold environment, in a cold room, so to say, so that they have got no emotional connection with the parent. They also lack some mental connection with the parent. The parent, so to say, lacks emotional empathy and cognitive empathy. They're not able to really understand what it is that the child needs and what support the child requires at the different stages of life. To some extent, this kind of parents demand accelerated growth and maturity. You will hear words like, you're no longer a child. I do not understand why you're saying that. I do not know why you are asking for this. There is a lot of disconnect between the child and the parent as far as their emotions, the emotional well-being is concerned, and their mental well-being is concerned. Remember that we said that part of parenting is providing the necessary emotional and mental support to the child, so this child is able to grow, is able to grow well. Now, the authoritarian parent fails a lot on that part of providing the support so needed for the child to grow. And please remember that as a parent, one of the greatest things, in fact, the balance is almost equal, that you must both be demanding and you must also be very, very supportive. So that when you begin to lack in one area, your child will begin, or your children will begin to look for coping mechanisms to help them to deal with the challenges that they keep on encountering in life. Now, the third type of parenting style that we have is a permissive parent. What is permissiveness? Permissiveness is allowing anything to go. Now, a permissive parent is very low on demandingness. They have got little to no demand on the child. Expectation for behavior and conduct is not there. It's not even articulated. Boundaries are never there, and even if they are there, they are not well communicated to the child. And there's a major disconnect between what the parent would want to instill as a value system and what the parent is actually doing at the end of the day. Several things would inform why a parent would be very permissive, so that they are not even concerned with how their child is growing and interacting with the world around them, and how the child is impacting their world, or how much the world is impacting this child. One of them, like we've said, is the family of origin, where the parent is coming from. But then if the parent is struggling with an addiction, with a weakness that is known in the family, then the parent begins to feel that they lack the moral and maybe spiritual authority to communicate expectations to the child, to determine boundaries within the child. When parents go through a divorce, or when the issue of infidelity or any other failure comes in, one of the things that you begin to do is that you find the parents becoming very permissive. They feel, I do not have what it takes to communicate my expectations to this child. The other reason why a parent would become permissive, they would be very low on demandingness, is because disciplining a child and observing the conduct of a child is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You don't need to become hyper vigilant over your child, but there's some need for vigilance, and there's a need for questions and follow-up questions. Sometimes there's need for investigations, need to visit schools and colleges and talk to other support systems within in the life of the child. Now, some parents do not have the strength to do that. They do not want to go through the emotions of disciplining their child and correcting wayward behavior. And so for that reason, they would rather err on the side of not having any expectations over the child, rather than have those expectations and then yet again have to go through the motions of rewarding and punishing behavior that is evident in the life of their children. Now, to compensate on that, or to overcompensate on that, permissive parents become highly responsive to their children. Now, what happens at this point is that this permissive parent absconds the duty of becoming a parent and almost becomes a friend to this child. Now, children brought up in a family where the parent is very permissive, they have no regard for authority, because boundaries teach a child where to go and what to do, what to touch and what not to touch. Unlike a child growing in an authoritative, in an authoritarian family, a parent with authoritarian who is very high on demandingness and very low on responsiveness, that child has an unhealthy fear for authority. Or when they become independent, they leave home, they have total, complete disregard for authority. In fact, they keep on testing the limits of authority. They become very wayward. They have got testing behavior as far as authority is concerned. They keep on testing. a lot of weight. You may have a colleague like that. Maybe you may have somebody who works under you, and they keep on testing authority. And when you look back, you will find they either had a parent who was authoritarian, and there was no space to express yourself and to see what is it that can work for me within this expectation. So that in itself informs a lot on that. And again, like I'm saying, permissive parents who are very low on demandingness but very high on responsiveness, they do not teach the child to value and respect authority, so that this child has never grown within an environment where they are controlled, where their hours are controlled, where duties and when and how they are done is controlled. So there's very little of that. But then the so to say unwanted support that is not counterbalanced by control breeds children who have a sense of entitlement and who are very pampered, and they become hypersensitive to correction and to criticism, especially positive criticism. They have a problem with that. They become hypersensitive because that was not something that they had to go through when they were growing up. The fourth type of parenting style we have is what you call a neglectful parent or an absentee parent. And you're not talking about neglecting in the sense that the parent can be physically away from the child. That there is a fact. But the parent and the child could be living under the same roof, but the parent is completely neglectful of their duty to control and to support their child. Now, this neglectful parent who exhibits classic avoidant behavior is very low on demandingness, but also very low on responsiveness. This child grows in a very, very volatile environment. In fact, a child who's grown up in this kind of a family, in this kind of a parenting style, have got what you call emotional volatility. You know, the emotions swing on a pendulum. They have got no control over the emotions, because one of the things that parenting does is to help a child to regulate the emotions and to develop emotional resilience. But a neglectful parent does not provide that for the child. You know, the child is completely disconnected with their emotional well-being. In fact, these children, though maybe intellectually bright, maybe very gifted, they lack emotional maturity. They also lack some form of mental maturity. They will obsess over very minor things. Now, the problem with this different parenting style, especially the neglectful parenting style, is that there's something we call the concept of the 5 great emotional and mental wounds. We call them soul wounds, 5 of them, great ones that affect a child. They can begin in early childhood, and they can be they can be evident in the life of a person until for the whole duration of their lifetime. Now, these 5 soul wounds is humiliation. There's abandonment, rejection, there is abuse and injustice. And on this Family Wellness YouTube channel, you can find other videos that try to address these 5 emotional wounds. I would ask you to visit them after this video and get to hear what these are. Now, these 5 wounds are evident, almost all of them, if not all of them, are evidenced in the life of a child who's grown up in a family, in an environment where parenting was neglected. There was no support, and there was no correction in that family. That this child begins to struggle with humiliation. They struggle with like a parent who has neglected their duties, paying school fees, buying clothes, taking a child to the hospital. When this child has got to go to school with torn uniform, they feel very neglected, especially in the face of other children. When those things do not connect, when that connection is not there, then this child begins to struggle with humiliation. They feel abandoned, they feel rejected, they feel a form of abuse, and they have an acute sense of injustice. Now, we must be very careful to look at where we are coming from and how we were parented, and how that parenting is affecting and impacting our own parenting style, either as a parent or as a potential parent. Now, because an authoritarian parent does not broker opportunities for discussion and dialogue, in their disciplining, they are almost militant. And there is a lack of empathy, either cognitive empathy or emotional empathy, to try and understand why did my child behave the way they behaved. Now, children who grow in such kind of a violent home can potentially become violent over their own children, or they can overcompensate by never ever disciplining their children, because they will consider any form of discipline equal in measure, even if it's perceived, to the disciplining wrongly that they got when they were growing up. It is important for you to critique and to look at this, and maybe it is time you began to talk to a therapist and find a balance and find a way that you can begin to process and improve on your own parenting style. Like I say, it's always a joy to host you at Family Wellness Counseling Center. We invite you to reach out to us. Let's talk. Let's begin this journey of you and I becoming better than who we are. Until next time, thank you so much and God bless you.